Hey everybody, Codemaster X here. So I wanted to make this video in response to CodeMonkey's new video about the Unity's pricing. Um, I want to get this out of the way early. I'm an Unreal fanboy, right? I very much enjoy Unreal. I've been using it for about 2 years now. Moved over from Unity from Unity to Unreal about 2 years ago, and I absolutely love it. This video is really not defending Unreal. It's more about the fact that Unreal right now is one of the viable alternatives to Unity, and I feel like CodeMonkey is wrong about his pricing for Unreal, and he's also wrong about the Unity's new pricing model. So we're going to kind of go through the video and we're going to kind of explain some of the things that I feel were a bit disingenuous, some of the things that he just glossed over. And we'll talk about kind of my thoughts about the new pricing and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get started.
Hello and welcome, I'm your CodeMonkey. So here's some Unity news. There's a pricing change. It's a bit complex, so there's already a ton of confusion and unanswered questions. I'm going to try my best to answer them based on how I understand things. Basically, the TLDR is if you are an indie dev like me making PC or console games, then probably nothing is really changing.
Okay, so I agree with this. On paper, nothing should change, right? If you look at the way that they worded things and the way that things are kind of are on paper, nothing should change. So he's absolutely right that nothing really should change if you're a smaller developer. But there are a lot, and I mean a lot of asterisks at the end of that sentence that I feel like he glosses over and is a bit disingenuous on. So let's kind of get into what the changes are and what my problems with his video are. Again, I do want to say that on paper, I agree with what he is saying. But I also think that what he's saying is a bit disingenuous because there are so many asterisks.
Mobile, the math might be different. I'm not familiar with the mobile world, so I really cannot comment on how this change affects mobile. But for PC and console devs, this likely means no difference. So here's the full announcement blog post. Basically, starting from next year, Unity will introduce a new Unity runtime fee that is based on game installs. Here it mentions the Unity runtime several times. Basically, the Unity runtime is what actually runs the Unity game. So you have the Unity editor, that is where you actually make your game, then you make a build. When you run that build executable, that is the Unity runtime.
Hey, so he's right here. However, one of the arguments that Game from Scratch made was that would be kind of like Microsoft charging for the .NET runtime. So you make this pretty awesome piece of software and you charge for the piece of software, and Microsoft is charging you for Visual Studio, and then they also charge you on top of that for people to use the .NET runtime. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, and just seems a bit greedy. It seems a bit, it seems a bit like they're kind of dipping too far into the bucket here. But he is correct. You have the Unity editor and the Unity runtime. The Unity editor itself is the Unity editor is basically what allows you to make your game, while the Unity runtime is what runs your game. Now, the Unity runtime is kind of pre-built, right? It essentially loads a C# DLL that will then kind of run your game. It also seems a bit disingenuous for platforms like iOS and Android, as those are actually building the runtime into that, right? Like yes, it facilitates the cross-platform. They are correct on that. But again, he is correct on this point. The Unity editor and the Unity runtime are kind of separated, and so when you're paying for development, generally you're paying for the Unity editor. This is different and very strange that they're making you pay for the end result. Normally, companies are charging you for the development of a product and not the distribution of a product, unless, of course, their business is distribution, like Steam. So it's a bit strange that they're charging both for development and distribution. Like I said, it seems like they're dipping a bit too far into the till here.
Basically, this new fee will apply when above the thresholds for both revenue and installs. Now, this and over here, this one is very important. This is one of the main points of confusion. So the fee only applies if above the revenue in the last 12 months and above the lifetime game installs.
Okay, so he's correct. I was confused about this myself. I do have friends who are making games on Unity. One of them is actually getting ready to release Launch the Baby from my good friends over at Moya Games. If you want to check that out, they do have a Steam page for that. So if you wanted to go to steampowered.com and you wanted to look up Launch the Baby, they do have the game, and feel free to go ahead and wishlist this. Yeah, so as you and as I will say here, I am also a developer on this game. I have actually done code in this game and helped out with this game, so just want to make sure that we're very clear about that. I have done development, but if you're interested in the game, please feel free to wishlist it. And it was made with Unity. So I want to be clear about that. I do have friends and I have used Unity in the past. But again, this is very concerning for me and for my friends, even though my personal projects have moved completely away from Unity. All of my projects are on either Unreal or on a custom engine away from Unity. So one of the things that I was confused about is that the thing when they put it out, let me see if I can find it here, seemed to have an or in there. I seem to recall there being an or, which really confused me. That was really so. Yeah, so this kind of seems like an or to me, not like a both. Right. Let me open this up in the browser. So this seemed like an or to me. If it hits one of these, right, especially since it says install over the threshold, right? And another thing I want to make clear is that it's life to date. That means essentially if you put your game out 50 years ago and it hit the 200,000 install threshold, but never really made any revenue, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to add things to my game and then put a price tag on it, all of those install thresholds go backwards to the very beginning of the life of the game, of the product, right? So that's one of the things that I want to be really clear about as well. So it is lifetime game installs, not just 12 months. While the monetary portion of things is 12 months.
Now, one good news from all this is that there is no longer a limit on revenue or funding for using the free version. So Unity Personal will now be available for anyone regardless of how much revenue they make. This is a really good thing because it means that if your game makes, for example, $1 million, you can still now stay within the free version.
Again, big asterisk on that. You can stay in the free version, but you still have to pay per install beyond, like, when you hit these thresholds, right? Now you can stay in the free version of Unity, but you still have to pay per install. Okay, he doesn't really specify that here. And yes, it's a bit nitpicky, but I also feel like, this is important to note.
Whereas previously, you could only use the free version up to a revenue or funding of 100K. If you made more than that, then you would need to get Unity Plus. And if you made more than 200K, you would need to get Pro. So then down here is a chart for what the fee actually is and how it applies. Basically, you have the 3 tiers. So you've got Unity Personal.
This seems really strange to me. How are they tracking installs? Now, I guess he mentions later on in the video that he spoke to the Unity guys and they are putting code in the game that will send messages back to their servers when someone installs the game. I don't like that. Essentially, if something happens with their process, right, and it happens to damage my user's computer, I could be liable for that, for code that I had nothing to do with. And I guess that really goes with any engine, right? If you're using an engine and it has code in it. But the thing is that it just seems weird that they're doing it in that way. I don't know. The install thing is really weird to me all around, right? Do they want you to are they going to make you basically audit where you have to tell them, okay, we've had this many installs, and you have to do that per month, and then Unity goes, well, we've had this many people actually say, are they gonna do that, kind of audit thing? It seems again, the whole thing seems incredibly strange to me to do installs this way. Generally, pay by the install happens for the person who is delivering the product and not the framework that runs the product. It's this pricing model, it just seems to be problematic in many ways. For instance, let's say that I bought the game on my phone, right? And then I says, oh, I really like this game, but I'd love to play it on my tablet. Then I install it on my tablet. Does that then cost the developer another install? Even though I've only bought the game once, I'm the exact same user, and I'm like, oh, I really like this on my tablet, and so I install it on my tablet. Is that another install? And then I say, oh, I really like this, but I'd love to play it with a mouse and a keyboard. I think that would be a little bit better, so then I install it on my computer. Is that then a third install that is going to cost the developer money? They don't really say that. From his conjecture at the end of the video, it does seem, because apparently he has spoken to the Unity developers, or at least he makes it seem like he spoke to the Unity developers. That does seem to be the case. That's very strange over, just a revenue model where they take, so much, based on your revenue, which is the standard way of doing this. I mean, that's the way Steam does it. It's the way Epic's Games store does it. It's the way everyone else does it. The Unity just has to be different. It seems like they're always having to be different. And yeah, anyway, let's continue on.
That's the free version, Unity Pro, and then Enterprise. Then you've got the revenue thresholds. These are all based on the last 12 months. Then you've got the installs threshold. So this is number of installs per lifetime. Then if the installs are above this amount and it's above this revenue on the last 12 months, if so, then this is the rate that is applied. So for the free version, when going above 200k installs, after that, it's 20 cents per install. Then Unity Pro, you've got 15 cents and it gets cheaper as you get more and more installs. And for emerging markets, so countries like China, India, Brazil, and so on, for these, you've got a lower install. Then there's also a fee reduction for using Unity Server.
The reason that these emerging markets have a lower price per install is because generally you're going to be making less from those markets, because those markets, their money is either worth less than ours, or they're impoverished nations that don't have as much money as first world countries generally do. So for China, it's that their money is worth less than ours, and then Japan, same way, would be worth less than ours. But for countries like India, they generally don't make that country doesn't make as much money, and the people don't make as much money as in other countries like the United States, United Kingdom's, that sort of thing. So they don't, you're not going to make as much off of them as you do, in the United States or in the UK or whatever. So that's why it's less here. This makes sense. This doesn't, and I'm not quite sure that is legal. This seems like, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't quite seem legal to me. I'm not a lawyer, but I seem to recall other companies getting in trouble over these weird pricing over there. These weird pricing. Sorry, my camera's backwards, but the weird pricing that they have, like, if you're free, then it's this, and then it's this, and then it's this. Yeah, I'm not quite sure this portion is legal. It may be. I would love to see someone like Legal Eagle or Lawful Masses go through and look at this. I'm not quite sure they ran this through their legal team. And there was another thing down here that Game from Scratch mentioned, where they were like tying services together, which is definitely not legal in some markets. So yeah, I'm not quite sure that this was entirely ran through legal. I would expect that this will change once legal has had a chance to go through this and smack someone upside their head, I'm assuming.
Services. There's not much detail on this, so I don't know how exactly the fee is reduced, but apparently this fee goes down if you're using Unity Gaming Services or Unity 11 Play. So this is their ad mediation thing. Again, I'm not very familiar with mobile.
Again, that's tying, and I know for a fact that's not legal in some markets.
And then the new services, so just a bunch of tools, just clarifying some things. So all Unity plans will get Unity Synthes. This is their upcoming machine learning.
This has been free. As a matter of fact, was it Danny, I think, made remade Mario Kart with like ragdoll physics and stuff, and was using their machine learning stuff. It was free. It has been free. So was this not free, and now all of a sudden they're making it free? Because it was free when he did it. I can't remember what it was called, but it was 100% free at some point.
Learning tool, which allows you to run machine learning directly on the device. This is related to the ML Agents package that I covered quite a while ago. Then Unity Personal will apparently get something called Unity Asset Manager. I think this is pretty much just some cloud storage. Then you've got Unity DevOps. This is
yeah, blah 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 blah. This is not really. I don't really have too much problem with that section of things. He's just kind of running through things, so we're just going to kind of skip over this.
I think it helps to think of a concrete example. So, for example, I talked a while ago about a game that was massively successful. If you have a 3-man team like the team that made BattleBit Remastered, and you were to sell 3 million copies and make $35 million, if so, then under the current terms, you really only have to pay Unity $6,000 per year. That's the cost of 3 Pro licenses. Whereas, for example, Unreal Engine has a 5% fee on gross revenue above 1 million. So on that same example, if BattleBit had been created using Unreal, they would have to pay $1.7 million instead of just $6.
Whoa. Wait a minute. So they sold 3 million copies. Let's see. So how much revenue is that?
If you have a 3-man team like the team that made BattleBit Remastered, and you were to sell 3...
So 3 billion copies. Let's see. How much is BattleBit? Okay, so BattleBit is $14.99. So let's assume that and they sold 3 million copies. So let's do this. So say how much is 3 million copies at, let's see, $15. That seems to be 45 million. All right. So, okay. And what would 5% of that be? Okay. So it seems to be about 2,250,000. So his math is just kind of wrong here. And he claims that it was only 3 developers that did this, and that it would only cost you about 6K. I'm not so sure that he's correct on that. I don't know how many people are actually in the studio, but I'd imagine they probably like hired out to people and stuff like that, because it's very hard to make a game with just 3 people. Trust me, I make games with 2 people. And so I'm like, again, I'm not quite so sure that that's correct. But so let's also look at this, because he
3 million copies
claims
and make $35 million? If so, then under the current terms, you really only have to pay Unity 6K per year. That's the cost of 3 Pro licenses. Whereas, for example, Unreal Engine has a 5% fee on gross revenue above 1 million. So on that same example, if BattleBit had been created using Unreal...
So let's also, so you would have to remove $1 million off of this, right? Because it's only above $1 million. So it's if you made $2 million, right? You only paid $5 million on one, or you only paid 5% on one of those $1 million, because the first $1 million is free. So that would bring this down a little bit. The big thing that he really isn't explaining here is that Unreal has a ton of tools that Unity just flat out doesn't have. There's a lot of things that I'm pretty sure they probably purchased from the asset marketplace, because it's, again, they're a 3-man team. That the chances are Unreal has built right in. So that part seems a little disingenuous, where you're, the Unreal Engine is built for a different market than Unreal. It always has been. Unreal, or Unity, seems like it's trying to compete with Unreal, but they've always had different markets. And I think that's the biggest problem here, is that Unity kind of forgot where their audience was. The draw of Unity has always been a solid engine that's tiny, runs fast, and is able to deliver a product in your way, right? So you decide the product, and it runs the way that you want it to run, because you're responsible for designing everything. They give you basically animation. They give you animation and physics. That's pretty much it, right? Other than that, they have like some built-in math functions and stuff like that. Unreal provides you a ton. So while Unity does provide you like UI, the UI doesn't have any animation tied to it. The Unreal UMG has animation built in. You can animate pretty much anything in the engine. And a number of other things that Unity just doesn't have. And the idea also behind Unreal is that it's very modular. So you get to, like, when you design things in Unreal Engine, they're designed in such a way that they're easy to kind of put together. And so if you purchase something from the asset store, chances are you can either make it, networked, because Unreal has networking built in. That's something that Unity has struggled with. It has a single pipeline, so you don't have to worry about, is this asset I'm purchasing going to work on the pipeline that I'm using, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of headaches that Unreal just removes from you that Unity doesn't. And I think that it's a bit disingenuous to try and compare Unity to Unreal, even though, like I said, I believe that Unreal is a viable alternative to Unity. in many aspects. If you're trying to do mobile development, depends on what kind of game you're making, because it is very heavy. I have made games in Unreal for the mobile, and the resulting executables, it's quite large. You can do a minimal install, which will bring it down a lot, but it's still not as small as a Unity executable. And again, I think that was one of the draw points of Unity. And it seems like they're kind of moving away from that. They're kind of, this whole thing seems like it's aimed towards live service models, games that are making recurring revenue and not like one-off games. That tends to be what Unity makes on the PC, right? It tends to be these one-off single purchase games. And it seems like they just lost their way. And so, like I said, comparing the pricing model for Unreal and Unity is a bit disingenuous, just because Unreal gives you so much more out of the box that Unity just doesn't give you. It's a lot of headaches that you don't have to deal with. And so, yeah, the revenue sharing is a bit higher, but again, it gives you so much.
Unreal, they would have to pay $1.7 million instead of just $6K. And then under these new Unity terms, at 3 million copies sold, instead of paying Unity just $6K, they would instead pay 80 grand. So definitely a very big.
Again, I'm not quite. Let's double check, because I'm not quite sure. So
instead of just $6K.
So it's 3 million units sold, right? So let's see. 3 million units at 20 per unit. That's $600,000. That's a far cry from the 80 that he's claiming. And again, I did the same thing I did with Unreal up here, where I even included the first bit. And Unreal gives you the first $1 million for free. Unity gives you 200,000. So you see what I'm saying? It seems a bit disingenuous. His math is just wrong here. 3 million units at 20 cents per unit is 60,000. If they were, maybe he was doing the best. Let me pull that up again. Maybe he was doing the best case scenario here. The best case scenario where they have purchased Unity Enterprise and they're doing 0.1 per install. So what would 3 million be? Let's see, the 3 million units at 0.01. 30,000. So it seems like he's kind of like in the best case scenario here, where they have Unity Enterprise. But again, you have to take into account that the first 100,000 is 1.25, and then this is 0.6, and then it's 0.06, and then it's 0.2 or 0.02, and then 0.01. So I don't know. His math is just kind of really weird here. I would assume that they probably started with, like the personal, and then maybe even upgraded to plus, which, would be like 15 cents per install, and then 75, and then 0.03, and then 0.02. I don't know. His math is just a bit disingenuous here. He's not really explaining how he got his numbers. And so again, this is best case scenario is $30,000. And yeah, it's less, but again, there's all of those caveats and those asterisks at the end. Are some of these, because obviously that's one purchase, right? What if they installed this on more than one computer? Like, let's say they have a desktop and a laptop. Just because they sold 30 million units or 3 million units, that doesn't mean that is 3 million installs. That could be even more installs than that. If they uninstalled it, right? Or let's say their computer gets a virus and it goes down, they need to reinstall Windows and they reinstall the game again. Then that's another, you know what I mean? So, it's there's a lot of asterisks on this, and things seem a bit different than he's trying to kind of play at here. That just seems really strange, and it's concerning the way that they have things written and that there's so many question marks around all this stuff.
And then under these new Unity terms, at 3 million copies sold, instead of paying Unity just 6k, they would instead pay 80 grand. So definitely a very big increase, but still pretty much a rounding error compared to the $35 million in revenue. But that's also an example of a monumentally successful game.
Let's also think, right? The developers of Valheim didn't think that they were going to hit that either, right? I'm pretty sure this BattleBit guys didn't think that they were going to hit this either. And so I'm pretty sure they also, in development, weren't expecting this install fee. So all of a sudden now these guys are on the hook for this install fee at next year. So when people start installing their game, because success tends to bring more success. If they go to do another game, if they go to add a new map or something, more people are going to want to get in here. And so now all of a sudden they have to pay these fees that they didn't agree to when they originally started developing the game. Am I making sense here?
For most indies, both engines really have excellent pricing. For most indies, both engines are completely free. And the simple reason is that for most indies making Steam games, this pricing change really means no change, since most indies will be way under all of these numbers. I believe the stats are that 90% of games on Steam never make more than 5k.
In the first 2 weeks. There is a big asterisk on that. Steam Games Report says 80% of games earn under 5,000 in the first 2 weeks. He doesn't mention that. He just glosses over this.
So this fee will not apply to something like 99.9% of Steam games. For example, I'm working on my own upcoming Steam game, Dingy Guardians. I really hope that the game will find success, but to me success means just selling 1,000 copies. Even if in my wildest dreams the game would be a huge hit and sell 10,000 copies, that is still 190,000 under this current limit. Although in my case I actually have Unity Pro, so in my case that would actually be 990,000 under the new limit. So my general takeaway is if you are an indie dev on the same scale as me, then it's very unlikely you will ever hit anywhere close to these thresholds. Again, keep in mind I'm talking about in the context of premium PC console games. For mobile, the math is very different. Now right away there's a ton of confusion on all of this. The fact that the fee is per install means there are a ton of possible weird edge cases which are not really explained anywhere. There's an official FAQ with a bunch of questions, but there are still so many unanswered questions. The official forum thread already has hundreds of posts and lots of questions, so here let me try to clarify some things, although do keep in mind that I do not work for Unity. I'm just a normal developer that uses Unity, just like you, so what I'm going to say here is based on...
He is not just a normal person who uses Unity, and this is why I'm making this video. He is a Unity representative because he is talking with Unity, he is able to get in contact with Unity. Can any regular, if like I showed you, I have a game launch the baby. Does that mean that I just am able to go and talk to Unity about and ask them these questions? No, that doesn't mean that. He's definitely on a different playing field than I am. He also has almost 500,000 subscribers. That's this way. Yes, this way. 491,000 subscribers. You know what I mean? So to try and say that he's small scale is it's a bit disingenuous, again, because you have quite a large following, and I understand that a lot of these people are game developers who probably won't purchase your game because they're making their own games, but the thing is that you do have an audience. A lot of game developers do not have an audience. they're coming at this blind and they don't understand these changes. And again, they don't have the type of clout that you do when it comes to being able to like get in contact with Unity and stuff like that. I'm sure they can probably email and ask questions and stuff like that, but they don't have that type of relationship that you have with Unity. I mean, I've seen on your channel several times how you've said you've worked with Unity and you do all this kind of stuff. Normal developers don't have that. So to try and say that you're on the same level is very disingenuous.
Reading the blog post very carefully, I do not have any extra secret knowledge. Now, the main thing that people are confusing.
He says he doesn't have any extra secret knowledge. But again, if we check his channel, he like claims that let's see if I can find it here, but he claimed on here, I probably should have I have some other things that I did before this, but you know, he it talks about in one of these videos how he, you know, was with that he did things with Unity. Like he definitely has contacts within Unity that the normal developer wouldn't have. And again, I find it very disingenuous to say that you don't.
Is the end. It is actually highlighted up here in the text. It says that only games that meet the following thresholds qualify for the installs. It is confusing because down here in the chart, this one is an and. So I have to pay per game basis. Everything on the blog post is referring to a game. To pay 2 fees, cost is going to be in threshold. Some people were thinking that as of 200 success. So for demos, the answer is technically yes. Free demo project on the Unity dashboard for the demo, and then a separate project for questions for which service. How exactly does that work? Not force your game to be personally identifiable data. I believe that one is just a random. The answer is no, because as far as I know, the player time, that was my first question when I first heard this. And with regards to that simple connection, someone asked, does this break any privacy laws? Now for that, I believe the answer is no, because as far as I know, the player ID that is generated, that does not have any personally identifiable data. I believe that one is just a random hash, so I don't think it has issues with privacy, but I'm not a lawyer, so I definitely could be wrong.
I have no idea how that works. He clearly has some idea of how this works. So clearly he has some internal idea of, you know, information on how this system is supposed to work. And again, I feel like he's running damage control for Unity here is what I feel. And that's fine. That is definitely fine. But there's a lot of things in this video that he says that seem pretty questionable. And seem pretty disingenuous, and to claim that he has no special connection with Unity, it again seems disingenuous. And to also say that, you know, the things that he said, and to not show how he's getting his numbers and stuff like that, also seems very disingenuous. I showed you guys how I came up with my numbers. You know, I even thought that this was going to be a little bit smaller than this, and it wasn't. You know, that's on me, you know, that sort of thing. But I showed you what my numbers were, you know, regardless of kind of how the result was. And so I feel like he's not being as straightforward as he could be here.
Wrong about that. Related to that question is, what about reinstalls? Say your player installs a game, then uninstalls it and plays it a year later. Is that 2 separate installs or just one? Like I said, I believe they are tracking installs through the player ID, which is stored in the registry. Now, I'm actually not sure if uninstalling a Steam game wipes the registry. If it does, then I believe that would count as 2 installs. And
what if they get a new computer? A new computer would definitely have a different registry. What if they have a laptop? That would definitely have another registry. I do not believe that Steam wipes the registry. If I could be mistaken, but I don't think it does. So while he's technically correct here, again, there's a lot of asterisks on that, where if you install it on your tablet, if you install it on your computer, if you install it on your phone, if you install it on your laptop, you know, that sort of thing, all of those count as installs. And so this can get ridiculous very quickly if you have users that have multiple devices and prefer to use multiple devices. I have a phone, I have a tablet, I use those quite frequently. I have a desktop. I use that quite frequently. I just feel like a lot of this stuff is a lot of this is like, seems to be glossing over a lot of the big problems here.
And if it doesn't, then I believe it would just count as one install. Another question with no clear answer is what about piracy? So if someone pirates your game and plays it, does that count? I believe the answer is those installs do indeed count, although supposedly Unity has some fraud prevention algorithm that they're already using in their ads and they will be using the same algorithm here. Although of course, I have no idea how well that works or how much of a problem this will be. And related to that, what about simply malicious actors? So what if someone makes a script to uninstall and reinstall your game constantly? In that case, I believe the answer is yes, that would count. So technically, if your game is above the revenue threshold, then technically this could be a big problem.
He uses the word technically here. I know malicious actors that I could tell you of a couple of different games stuff like this has happened to right off the top of my head. I won't name names here because I don't want to send more problems over towards that, but there was someone who like embedded an iframe into their game at 1 pixel in the bottom right hand corner so that every time you loaded the game up, it would go to their page to push their stuff upwards. There was another one that had hacked, like there were 2 competing projects. One had hacked the other, and brought their site down and stuff like that. Like this stuff happens all the time. And if you give someone this power over you, this, where you have this install thing, it's not hard to make a script that will delete the registry key, uninstall the game, and then reinstall the game. And then you run that on a server or something, spare laptop, whatever. You can easily rack up a few $100s in a night on your own just with a single PC. So to say, oh, this technically could be a problem, it is a problem. Unity is giving that kind of power to bad actors, and it doesn't seem like they're really doing too much to do that. They have some algorithm. Okay, so are we supposed to trust that this is gonna not cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars? And then when I say, hey, Unity, your algorithm failed, they go, oh well, pay me. You know what I mean? Unity holds all the cards in this situation. It's their servers that get hit to tell them how much that you need to pay them. It's their algorithm that is, their closed source algorithm that is handling all of this stuff that we have no idea how it works, if it works, when it works, if it even exists, we don't know. That's a problem. And you're entrusting developers who this may be their first game. They don't understand how this works. That they've never had a viral hit before. They don't understand a lot of times that they need to put money away and make sure. A lot of these developers are probably people who are struggling, and all of a sudden they get a big influx of money, and it's, oh my god, this is going to change my life. This saves me. It saves my house. And then they spend money, and now all of a sudden Unity owns your house because you owe Unity a bunch of money. They don't. It is potentially a huge problem, and Unity is holding all of these cards, and they make all of the rules when it comes to this, especially with how ambiguous all of this is. Am I making sense? Why I feel like this is a problem? And again, maybe I'm just being alarmist here, but I would prefer to use something personally that I can predict. I know that if I get 5,000 sales at $1, then I get $5,000 and I don't owe Unreal anything. I know if I make $1,000,001 that I owe them 5 cents. It's a simple math. I'm able to simply put that together, and I know what I owe them, and I'm able to predict that. You can't predict this. You don't know how many users, how many computers they have. You don't know how many devices they have. It's not something you could predict, and a lot of people don't have the throwaway capital, the rainy day capital to weather a storm where your game blows up overnight. And and that sort of thing. It's just with Unreal, it's simple math. If my game blows up overnight and I make $2 million, that's what, $5,000 that I owe Unreal. I just put that to the side in an escrow account and tell Unreal, yo, I have this $5,000 in an escrow account. Whereas if my game blows up and I have people installing it on 3 different computers, how much is that going to cost me? I don't know. I have no idea. Could cost me 15 cents, could cost me 0.75 cents, could cost me 0.3 cents or 0.03 cents. I don't know. I don't know.
Basically, you have to trust that their fraud prevention algorithm is very good at detecting that. So as you can see, lots of questions, lots of confusion. I hope...
Again, he says it's very good at predicting that. They claim that it's very good at predicting that. I don't know. I haven't seen the code. I don't know how it works. And they hold the code. They hold the cards on that. And secondly, if they don't go through official channels, if all of a sudden your game gets pirated and they're hitting the servers, you don't know unless you're tracking it yourself. If you put tracking code in there that also hits your servers, Unity can say, "Oh, you owe us $1 million in install sales," and you're like, "Whoa, wait a minute! I'm checking my stores, and there hasn't been that many people that have purchased my game." And Unity goes, "Well, our servers were hit with installs. Where did those come from? We don't know. It ended up on the Pirate Bay or something. I don't even know if that's still around, right? But that was the big one for a long time. It ended up on the Pirate Bay and a bunch of people downloaded it. Now, whatever. Some Juarez site somewhere. It's a problem. It's a big problem. And I feel like he's just, hand waving all that away. I'll have a big thing at the end why this really upsets me and the reason why he keeps doing this. And this the way he goes about these Unity problems really upsets me, and we'll talk about that near the end.
Hope I helped clarify at least some of these, and hopefully the rest will become clear in the very near future. But in general, my main takeaway is just like I said in the beginning: if you're an indie dev like me, especially a Steam or console indie dev, then there's really no change. Like I mentioned in my own example,
there's no change on paper. Like I said in the beginning, there's no change on paper. That's if everything goes well and, this is, fairy tales and unicorns and everything goes off without a hitch. On paper, it shouldn't change. But the devil is in the details, always, and they will always bite you. That's why I prefer my details be as simple as possible and as predictable as possible.
By some miracle my own game sells over 1 million copies, I would gladly pay this new fee. And if you want to help me make that miracle a reality, go ahead and add Dinky Gardens to your wishlist. I'm hard at work to get the game ready for release early next month. Alright, so I hope this quick news update was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Okay. So let's talk about this. Kind of my closing arguments here. I felt like his math was off. I still feel like his math is off. Use what engine works best for you and your game. But also take care of yourself. you need to ensure that you are understanding how this stuff works. And this is very ambiguous. And he says, hopefully it will be clear. I don't personally want to work with an engine where I have to hope that they make things clear to me how this is going to cost me money. I don't want to deal with that personally. I have to hope that they're going to tell me how much this is going to cost me, how this stuff works. That's their job to tell me. And this is the same company who hired a CEO, John Riccitiello, I think is his name. He worked for EA. He served from, as the CEO from 1997 to 2004, came back in 2007 to 2013, and managed to win Electronic Arts 2 Golden Poo Awards in a row. This is the same man who's done that. Is that really something you want to trust your future to, your baby? We're making games here. A lot of people are picking up these engines and making a game that they've had a dream about since they were kids. These are your children that have been in your brain since you were a child, and you're trusting them to this engine that now is going to make a change that works retroactively. Essentially, they're adding a new charge on top of something. This is the same thing as saying, okay, I've lived here for 10 years, right? And then my landlord comes to me and says, hey, I'm raising the rent by $50. And he says, okay, that's going to hurt, but, whatever, right? And the landlord says, no, I'm changing it retroactively. So now you owe me $50 for the entire 10 years you've been staying here. It's a problem. It's a big problem. And, he's right. It's 5% of royalties. Again, you don't owe anything on royalties above or under $1 million. So your first $1 million is free. You don't owe, you don't just hit $1 million and then you magically owe 5% on your first $1 million. It doesn't work that way. It's whatever is above your first $1 million. And again, it's 5%. It's easy math. This potential problem with that is, you have, let me do my closing arguments here. You have almost 500,000 subscribers. You're a channel that built up your reputation on being a teacher. People trust you. People trust your opinion. People trust that you are going to be giving them accurate information and fair information. And while I believe, what you said is right on paper, it is also a big problem, potentially a big problem. And there, like I said, there's the big potential for this to cost people way more than they're making. You know what I mean? If you made, let's say you put a game out and it just barely squeaks $200,000, but you had a big push and you had 1 million downloads and installs, you didn't make as much money as now you owe Unity. There is the potential for that. There's actually a very big potential for that. This happens a lot where games, how many people download the Raid Shadow Legends and then actually pay any money into that game? I think they use Unity. So now all of a sudden it's costing them per download. And sure, they probably have enough money that they can weather the storm and they can eat that, and it's not a big deal to them. But for someone like me, who lives paycheck to paycheck and is trying to make a game, trying to make it in the industry, that is, potentially a big problem. It is very potentially a big problem. And I really feel like CodeMonkey has downplayed every single issue that has come out with Unity and hand waved away all of the problems, and he finds whatever straw man he can and fights that straw man, and then hand waves away everything else, all of the other potential problems, all of the other, everything. You need to do better. People trust you. People come to you for guidance. People come to you for opinions, that sort of thing. You need to make sure that your opinion is as nice as possible for everyone, and that you're telling people what the potential issues are for this. And you just kind of glossed over the potential issues. You made a big, the intro was, 5 minutes long, talking about, how this isn't a big deal. And then you have a quick 30-second segment where you're like, okay, well, technically, yes, this, technically that, technically this, technically that. And you just roll right over top of the potential big issues. I feel like it's disingenuous. I feel like you need to do better. And I'm calling you out. Do better. And for everyone who is worried about this, your worries are justified. I don't want you to feel like you're being crazy and no one, you're being crazy and blowing this out of proportion. No, this is a potential big issue, and you have every right to be concerned, and you deserve not to have your worries about your financial future for trying to make an effing video game hand waved away from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.